the internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winford Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVMTV.
So much more than entertainment.
Turbulence to future, I'm going to end that CVM. See it happen. We've got the love others are searching for. I'm still loving you, even though you're gone. I could have been one of the most notorious. Keep it royal. Give thanks and praise for life. Thank you very much. Go bang!
Need to estimate your duty? Perform a track and trace? Search for a declaration?
Then download the Jamaica Customs mobile app today. The time by the Jamaica Customs Agency is
12 p.m.
For joining us for CVM News at noon. It's Thursday, January 29, 2026. I'm Amoy Harriet. Up first, the Director of Public Prosecutions, Claudette Thompson, has recommended that Senior Superintendent of Police Wayne Cameron be charged with fraudulent conversion and larceny as a servant. This in relation to a case submitted by the JCF's Constabulary Financial Unit, which falls under the Counter-Terrorism and Organized Crime Branch. SSP Cameron is at the center of a high-profile legal dispute with Police Commissioner Dr. Kevin Blake, who last year issued a controversial directive removing him as chairman of the Police Officers Association, POA. That directive was temporarily blocked earlier this month when the Supreme Court granted Cameron an interim injunction. Now on Monday, Commissioner Blake filed a notice of appeal, escalating the legal battle as a criminal recommendation now adds a new and serious dimension to the dispute. We'll have more on this developing story later in CVM News at 7. Frustration is brewing among employees of the National Solid Waste Management Authority, NSWMA, following the death of a colleague who was electrocuted while on duty. The worker has been identified as Garfield Johnson, a sanitation employee who was injured on January 16 while working on a garbage truck in the Greenwich Farm community in St. Andrew. Now, reports indicate the truck became entangled with an electrical wire, resulting in Johnson suffering severe electric shocks and burns. He was rushed to hospital where he later died on Tuesday. Now, the workers staged a protest on Wednesday outside the organization's offices, raising concerns about workplace safety and what they describe as a lack of communication and support from the company following the incident. Now, CVM News spoke to a worker who's also a cousin of the deceased man, who told us he was there at the time of the accident.
I can't sleep, the whole family in a grief. I be a rum me a drink, I be a weed me a smoke, and it still not get to the pain. Well, I saw enough local thing going on, and you see those shows, some people down there, them like to keep things under carpet, cause them afraid to lose them job, and this and that, cause that's the first thing they bring to you, you know. You will lose your job, and that them ever tell the people them with, and remember say, you know, people have them pinning for feed, and nobody not better for do. Out there, we are juggle, and if you can't see, say we hustle a money more time out on the road and thing. And I like my job. I like my job. You get me? But at the way of them treat people, some of the bigger heads, them doing business about sanitation, the work of them.
Now we'll hear more coming out of that interview with Abijah Hamilton later in CVM News at 7. To other news now, Minister with Responsibility for Works Robert Morgan says the government has encountered challenges with the Southern Coastal Highway Improvement Project. Now, you'll recall that in September last year, the roadwork was disrupted after the minister said he received reports that individuals were seeking to unlawfully impose themselves on the project by claiming authority to take over. Now, the issues now that are being faced are of a different nature. Minister Morgan was speaking at a post-cabinet press briefing on Wednesday.
We'll admit that we have had some challenges on the St. Thomas Highway project, particularly as a result of water line issues. But the contractor is obligated to ensure that whatever is handed over to the government is of a particular quality. So the government is not responsible for any repairs to any problem that is on the St. Thomas Highway, whether it be package A or B, because the contractor has a legal obligation to ensure that we get it. What has been happening over the last 3 months is that the contractor has been handing over sections of the road to the government. But even after the handover is done, the road is still under warranty for 2 years. So we have not taken control of a majority of the road yet.
Now, livestock farmers in eastern Westmoreland are still reeling from the effects of Hurricane Melissa, which caused millions of dollars in losses and pushed many farmers into debt. One of those affected is Theodore Williams, a major livestock farmer and butcher from the Lennox-Bigswood district in Darlington. Now, before the hurricane, Mr. Williams employed dozens of residents and supported several small farmers by purchasing their animals. But he told CVM News that Hurricane Melissa wiped out large numbers of his cattle, goats and pigs, with many killed and others missing. Williams says he's now deeply in debt and unable to recover as electricity has not been restored to the area, adding that his cold storage facilities and generators were also destroyed, leaving him unable to preserve what livestock remains.
JPS come down by the business and say that somewhere, somehow, they are trying to really see if they can get current to reach me. I don't know when, but I'm looking forward to see if that really resolve. I hear the government still been talking about businesses should get some help or can get some help, but I don't see where that reach, where I see no one approach, or where you could go to really make
get
that assistant in the sense in which that necessarily needed.
Now, the Greater Portmore Health Centre is one of 3 St. Catherine locations being enhanced under the Health System Strengthening Programme funded by the Government of Jamaica, the IDB and the EU. Minister of Health Dr. Christopher Tufton visited the site to give an account of the progress of the building project. Crystal Williams has the details.
What will a new health centre mean for the people living in Portmore? With the expected opening of the $660 million expansion of the Greater Portmore Health Centre set in summer, the Ministry of Health and Wellness has ensured that adequate cooling, among other amenities, will make the facility as comfortable as possible. Orette Clark, manager for the Health Systems Strengthening Programme, explains the SMART building standard.
We're talking about water harvesting structures to be placed with our buildings stuff for them to be resilient. So we utilize water produced from the rain to actually flush toilets and stuff. We're also utilizing use of solar panels. You can see over the Greater Portmore Pharmacy where we're putting some of those to reduce the need of the reliance on the JPS supply in particular. So in these would actually be using the solar panels for this facility.
The European Union has had a 51-year partnership with Jamaica. Anicito Rodriguez Ruiz, head of cooperation for the delegation of the European Union to Jamaica, shares that the repair and expansion of the health facility will be on time and within budget.
We are very happy first to accompany the government of Jamaica in this project of increasing the capacities and providing more resilience also to the buildings, because when a disaster, fortunately we had the very recent experience, when a disaster happens, the first infrastructure that we need to be operational is the health infrastructures, and this is why it's important the resilience element of these buildings.
The Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Christopher Tufton, spoke on the behalf of the International Development Bank, IDB, as their representatives were unavailable. He says they are considering more developments for the facility.
Based on meetings that we have had, they are also very pleased with what is happening. They are pleased with the on-time, on-budget nature of the project, and they are very encouraged. And indeed, we're talking to them now about a possible phase 2, subject to government approval, involving a number of hospitals and health centers in the hurricane belt of the 5 parishes that were impacted, More will be said on that, but a lot of those discussions are predicated on the success of this program.
He says the ministry sees it important to manage and run the project in the most economically beneficial way. Crystal Williams reporting for CVM News.
And it's time now for a break, but stay with us. Our live interview comes up next.
Hi, I'm Landy. Welcome to NLA Connect, the National Land Agency's customer engagement platform. NLA Connect is a simple, user-friendly platform designed to help you share your feedback, get support, and updates about land-related matters. Available 24/7, NLA Connect allows you to share suggestions, comments, and commendations, submit queries and report issues, attach files with your requests, track requests and get real-time status updates, connect with NLA client engagement officers, and provide feedback on the service received by the platform. We're making it easier for you to connect with us. You can access NLA Connect via our website, using the kiosk at any of our offices, or scanning the QR code displayed at our locations. Need any help along the way? Check out our FAQs section. It has all the answers you need in one location. NLA Connect, your voice, our priority.
Every day starts with care. Care that's always close. SuperMed Family of Pharmacies is where you go for everything you need. From your morning routine to life's biggest moments, SuperMed Family of Pharmacies is always by your side. Whether it's prescriptions or household essentials, trust the care that's close to home. Super happy, super healthy, SuperMed.
Welcome back to CVM News at noon. Recent seismic activity in Jamaica, including a higher number of recorded earthquakes and multiple felt tremors, has sparked questions about whether the island is experiencing an upsurge in earthquake events. To help us understand what's really going on and what it means for communities, infrastructure and disaster preparedness, we're joined now by Professor of Sedimentary Geology at the University of the West Indies, Mona, Simon Mitchell. Good afternoon, Professor Mitchell.
Good afternoon.
Talk to our viewers. First of all, are we seeing an increase in earthquakes? And can you explain what, if so, is driving the recent increase that we're seeing in these activities being recorded in Jamaica?
Okay, well, I'm not so sure we're seeing a particularly larger increase. What we're actually certainly doing is, I think, is seeing people being able to pick them up more easily. Because they're aware of earthquakes. I think always when you had a relatively large earthquake, it makes people more sensitive to these things. And of course, we had that a couple of years ago. So I think what we're seeing is that. Now, I look at all the earthquakes that we actually, we have. And of course, everybody has to realize that we only report, or the earthquake unit only reports a small number. In fact, we only report those earthquakes that somebody felt. So, for each one that's felt, there's probably something of the order of 10 or so more, which nobody felt. And because we don't really want to worry people by saying, oh, we've had another little one, we've had another little one, we only make a report, or Kevin from the earthquake unit makes a report when we actually get one that is felt.
So you said another little one and another little one. Should Jamaicans be concerned, though, that these frequent small tremors, these little ones that we're feeling, could eventually lead to a big earthquake?
Okay, well, there's two ways of looking at it. The first one, if we look at where we're actually getting the earthquakes at the moment, it's actually in the normal place for the earthquakes. We have a cluster of earthquakes that occur in Jamaica year after year after year. And this is in the sort of northwestern Blue Mountains area. And it's actually quite close to where the big one was a couple of years ago. But it really is a very, very common experience. And it's quite clear that this area is actually very close to a significant older plate boundary, and it continually is readjusting. So what we're seeing is that there's always going to be a bit of energy released at that point because the plates are juggling against each other. Now, does it mean we're not going to get a big one, or does it mean we're going to get a big one? It's very, very difficult to predict earthquakes. This is one of the biggest problems we have. We know that we will get a big one, and it could be this year, it could be, in the next 10 years, it could be the next 50 years. We actually cannot predict earthquakes well enough because we simply cannot see that stress building up on the faults. My feeling is that the big faults that are significant are the ones that run east-west. And these smaller earthquakes are not on those faults. But what it could be doing is transferring sort of pressure onto those faults. So it's very difficult for us to say, yes, we might be going to have a big one, or no, we're not. But I think that we've got to be aware that we are in a zone where we do get big earthquakes.
So speaking of that zone, Prof, how seismically active is Jamaica compared to other Caribbean countries?
There are others that are more seismically active, but we're well up there. I would say that probably the most seismically active is the Dominican Republic through Haiti. They have two large faults going through those two countries within that single island. We have one sort of fault that branches up going through us. So I would say we're certainly up there, and we certainly cannot ignore these things. But I think that probably you would say that the Hispaniola, the countries of Haiti and Dominican Republic, are definitely the hotspot.
So are there any specific areas in Jamaica that are most at risk? And if so, which areas are these?
The general areas that are at risk, it's not actually directly where the earthquake is, although that, of course, makes a big difference. It's the areas that are relatively flat. And the reason for that is the areas that are relatively flat, so for instance, most of Kingston is flat. The reason is it's made of soft sediments. And when you get an earthquake, what happens is those soft sediments react more strongly than solid rocks. So if that happens, you get the waves causing more damage or being higher amplitude, and therefore they shake things more significantly. So that's why it's these areas that are significant. It's also not insignificant that these are the areas that also feel the very small earthquakes, and that's why we report them, because it's easier to feel them in these places. And particularly now we have high rises, because on the top of a high rise, you're going to feel it more easily.
So you alluded to it just now, but earlier you mentioned that, could be this year, could be next year, another 15 years, we will get another major earthquake. What does this mean then for buildings and infrastructure? I know you spoke about it just now. And overall disaster preparedness in Jamaica. Is there something more that we should be doing that we aren't doing at the moment?
It's one of those difficult problems. The first thing is that the last serious major earthquake was 1907. Okay, more than 100 years ago. That means that we have built a vast amount of infrastructure, houses, roads, everything else.
All right, it appears we may have lost Professor. Okay, we're hearing you, Professor. You can go ahead.
Yeah, even if we are building to codes today, all of those buildings in the past weren't necessarily. And so that's where the problem is. The real problem is we don't know what the building stock looks like. I would hope that everything that is being built today is being built to the right sort of code, the building codes. If it is, it's got a good chance of surviving a significant earthquake. Unfortunately, the only way of testing is to have a big earthquake. So I'm hoping that all these high-rises have been designed in the right way, have the right foundations, have the right amount of steel and concrete. The concrete is up to specifications so that they withstand. I can't tell you that. Nobody looking at them can tell you that. It's only the people who built them. And basically they say, yes, we did build it to the specifications.
All right.
We would find out when there's an earthquake.
So we're just about running out of time, but on an individual level, Professor, what practical advice do you have for Jamaicans?
Oh, prepare. I mean, preparation is very important. If we get a big earthquake, it's going to really upset everybody. So in other words, if you've got children at school, tell them what to do if an earthquake happens. In other words, stay at school if it's safe. Because what happens when an earthquake hits is everybody tries to get on the road, and of course you get gridlock. Now, if we've got roads damaged and everything, nobody can go anywhere. Trying to get on the roads is not the way to do it. Talk about it beforehand. Say, stay in a safe place where it's safe, and we'll worry about it once we can actually communicate with people.
All right. Thank you so much,